Pasha Paroh Y Net 7. Thank you for tuning. Back with us again, the amazing Trish McCabe. greetings. So today we're going to be discussing duality. Trish, I know this is I'm a fan of saying I speak for the infinity. And I recently discovered something about myself, and I'll tie that in later as we go. Because I'm a man of equations, I say my quote is, I'm a man of equations, not the variables, that allows me to see the infinity of the topics and situations. And we were discussing that in B-roll footage last week, and it really keyed into we were able to relate to it because I say infinity and you're a fan of duality, which is really the same thing. So we're going to chop it up today. Give you a rundown on it.
Okay. I've just, I've been talking a lot about this with a lot of different people, and especially on Facebook and various different groups. I'll revisit what we talked before. Like, I like to use this one because it's used a lot. The pride cometh before the fall. Pride, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's not always true. There's a dark side of pride and there's a light side of pride. Now, when pride is out of balance, it will trip you up. It's the dark side of the ego involved in that. So, but there's also the light side of the pride when you achieve a goal, like you graduate from college, you get your degree, you feel a sense of pride. You bring your child into the world and your child makes really good decisions and you have a sense of pride. So, well, this kind of goes for everything across the board. And that's what we're going to talk about today, right? We're going to break some of this down and use some examples to illustrate what we're talking about.
Exactly. Yeah, we were discussing that, and then we said that pride comes before the fall, and I was like, what that registered to me is that most people consider that or feel or associate that saying with some negative element. And
mention that, yeah, I like that.
Yeah, and I was like, what just hit me, and the download was that it's not actually always negative, because when you have the pride in yourself, like you're talking about, you could have on the light side, as you call it. That's it. I think that helped develop this concept. But the things that could fall may be the actual negativity out of your life. You know what I mean? That darkness could be, if you want to call it darkness as such, that could be what's falling out of your life. So the pride that you have, the confidence that you gain in yourself, could be right before the fall, but that could be something good, as you just expanded on. So that was great. And I think that, and then you have this detail here, right? From your perspective is everything. And you have some dualities there.
Yeah, someone shared that and I shared it on my page because I think it's a great example of what we're talking about. And just real quick, because coming to my mind is before we got to this podcast, we were talking about gaslighting and titles and labels that my sister doesn't like when I use this term, that throws the baby out with the bathwater, that when you deem something bad and wrong and it has duality to it, when you're getting rid of it like that, you're also getting rid of the positive attributes to whatever you're talking about, like pride. So that's why duality is so important to understand, so that we don't do that. We don't get stuck in, like people say, get rid of the ego. That's not possible. And you really don't want to do that. Anyway, so I wanted to say that because I felt like it was important because it ties in our previous podcast, which led us to where we are right now. The labels and the titles and that suggest, like blanket statements that suggest pride in this one way, that's actually not accurate. So we're clarifying these things here today.
Yeah, will you get into the infinity, like you're gonna lose some friends because they want to gaslight you. They want to put you in this box. They want to tell you that this is the only corner you should think about, and you're like, but and they're like, no, it can't be that way. I just need you to stay in this box, and you must woo. And they're like, you're like, the Matrix on them, like, whoosh. You're like, no, I am Neo. I am the one. You know what I mean? And the one is connected to the source of everything, and it's all there. Don't you see it? And it's like, so you become the one once you really can embrace the duality and or the infinity, depending on how you label it. So let's look at what dual is from the etymology real quick.
Perfect. Love it.
And we got 1607 originally for the adjective, which meant simply from duo, right? Which is two. Right. Okay, so this is pretty cool to start because it embraces a lot of what we're going to talk about. And so you have from two, right? So then you got to add, but it tells you that to get the full understanding, you got to go and look at what AL mean, okay? Because it's coming from duo. So they took the word duo, which meant two, and they added AL. So when you get into that, the AL has two different versions of what it does to words, right? It's got the meaning of like, related to. So like the AL as far as for adjectives, it's the meaning of, let me break it down so it's clear, because it means of, like, or related to, okay, as the adjective form. Now the noun AL, right, it forms a noun of the action of the verb. So like to duel, you know what I'm saying? So it's the meaning of the act of blank ing. So you're dueling each other, like the two opposing forces, right? So dual means of, like, or related to in one fashion, and the other fashion would mean the act of twoing. Okay, like I'm gonna put it like that so it makes sense.
Right.
Take it away, Trish. What do you think about that?
I don't know why, but it's kind of like, for some reason, I don't know, this probably might even not be applicable, but the twins, twins, and they say that, the evil twin and the good twin. And I don't know, I'm trying to think of like
the Zodiac, the Geminis.
Yeah, that, or like just trying to use some examples to kind of like the Force in Star Wars, the fine line between good and evil, and that they're, well, I mean, if you, I don't know, my sister and I were talking about it, like the yin and yang thing. If you think about duality, you look at, you wouldn't know what the nighttime is if you didn't have the daytime.
Exactly.
They both have a purpose. So you have that contrast. And they're both necessary. And it's not possible to get rid of one or the other. And we've been living under the lie that it is in certain instances. That has really just thrown humanity off balance because of that.
I think you make a great point there.
Yeah, there's times when you need your darkness, you can't be whole if you don't. Yeah, like people say, oh, you can't be violent, but then that means you can't defend yourself. Because what if somebody's trying to kill you? Exactly. Sometimes you're going to have to resort to violence to save your own life, or your children, your loved ones, or you're in a situation where somebody's in a bad situation and you have to step in, and sometimes you might have to be violent. So when you deny that, then you're not able to defend yourself. Just an example. I don't know if that if that answered your question. I don't think it answered your question.
hey, look, we're doing this improv. So yeah, you speaking your mind, and that made it added value. And what I want to say to that is, I get when people tell me because like right now, right, part of like what you see me talking about is how we need to eliminate certain mindsets. You know what I mean? And the people be like, well, you can't eliminate the mindset because of duality, and you know, we need balance, and how can you get rid of one and have the... And I'm like, you know what, here's what it is, right?
Right.
It's the fact is, like you said, the truth is, if we go back to your perspective is everything and look at that list, you can't have one without the other. That is true. You need there has to be a balance at the bare minimum to recognize each other. Okay. Yeah. In the actual duality of things, like when people say good and bad, which is, even though bad is really just, it means an infinite male and effeminate male and all this stuff. So it doesn't actually positive and negative, you know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. But whatever the duality range is. But here's the thing, what we can do, and tell me what you think about this. And people put it in the comments below what you think. We can't get rid of the duality. True. However, we can narrow the focus of the extremes that we are willing to encounter. So what I mean by that is, like, one society, like when you said, okay, what if you got to defend yourself if someone's trying to kill you, right? Well, that is true in society when people are still trying to kill each other. If we were to ascend collectively to a higher level of consciousness where killing each other was like the last thing we would do, now that focus has become narrowed and the duality is still present, but the extremes aren't there. So you're dealing with different, you know, different levels of shit, so to speak. Does that make sense to you?
Well, if everyone, to me, if they got to the point where they weren't violent, I would say it would be because they're allowed to be violent when it's necessary. Mm-hmm. It's knowing when it should be violent is the key. So, but we don't have that. We've got a lot of judgments about that, and especially in the spiritual communities, you know, the peace, love, and light. And I love that. It's valid, but I mean, if you're not allowed to defend yourself, peace is going to be really hard to obtain. If you're not allowed to protect yourself. And you know, we have this turn the other cheek thing, especially in the spiritual and the religious communities, and that's allowed a lot of abuse. You know?
I do. Real life examples would be like in the states with the highest per capita gun ownership, you have the lowest crime rates.
Nice. Perfect. Yeah.
You know, in areas traditionally, I mean, that's shit's great change now, right? But traditionally, in areas where, I mean, what I'm going to say is it's ready to change, but traditionally, in areas with the highest per capita income, you have the least crime. You see what I'm saying? So when you change the dynamics to where you're not putting people in positions to need to be violent, like you said, yeah, you know, you can be violent, but when you eliminate the need to be violent,
yes,
you allow people to be something that they otherwise wouldn't be able to experience, that peace and that joy in life, and you'll get a different person out of the end of that factory as a product, so to speak. You see what I'm saying?
I look at it like, if you change the setup and people integrate all of themselves, including their violent selves, so that allows them to defend themselves, and you're prepared, and let's say you're trained to have a gun and whatever, people are less likely to mess with you.
That's the per capita gun ownership states that when you don't break into someone's house when you know everybody's got 25 guns. You know, I ain't gonna say you won't. Your thought process is less likely, right? So absolutely with that. Now, go over okay, so you shared this on Facebook here, and you want to run through it real quick and give like some of your talking points, and then we'll go into,
I can get this to,
numerology.
Perfect. Oh, yay. Okay, cool. I love this. Perspective is everything, and in this particular meme is very tied to the point of duality. This is discomfort versus growth, problems versus challenges, rejection versus, oh, not, is it rejection? Rejection
Excuse me,
versus redirection.
Mhm. You
My
got
glasses are
triggers.
a little bit.
No,
Triggers versus reveal wounds.
mhm.
In other words, there's gifts in things. There's the good part of these negative traits also have gifts, have some good elements to them. Darkness reveals a light.
Definitely.
Failures reveal lessons. Fears reveals teachers. Pain reveals power. Yes, absolutely. Pain, no, that's how they say no pain, no gain.
No pain, no gain.
There's things you can get out of that, you know, that you can use that pain to your benefit and turn it into wisdom, which I think is the most powerful thing you can possess, your wisdom. And people don't, you know, if we're not living out of the principles of duality, the pain will take over. You just did a, by the way, people, I highly recommend you watch his podcast on grief. I really loved it, and it was so timely. And I shared it on my Facebook page too. And I really recommend his podcast channel. There's a lot of really great stuff he's doing on there. Pasha, I just had to plug.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now,
Had to do a little quick plug because it's really great.
appreciate that.
Yeah, I think it's kind of cool. In that podcast, you talk about sorrow being out of balance, in a sense, and pain, and you get stuck in it
Yeah,
because they've forgotten that part, that there's power in it, there's wisdom in it, lessons, learning, self-understanding, self-reflection, you know, understanding others, compassion. There's a lot of things that come out of pain that people don't realize always.
exactly. Exactly.
Anyway,
It's one of the greatest learning tools out there, and it's really
yeah,
what we're all basing life off of, because everything that you find joy in and you're chasing after in life as a human is because it's temporarily relieving the pain that you're going to feel from society and the world itself, and that's why you enjoy it so much, because it's that temporarily relief. And then
yeah,
the complication is to actually maintain the joy, because when you don't, you're going to recess back into the pain that's always there. So let's look at this real quick. One thing I want to add is that when you brought up the lightness and darkness, you know, that when you say duality,
yep,
and then it's easy to picture, oh, light and dark is opposites. And the key is when the one thing that the infinity element adds, or the equation element adds, is you realize is that they're part of the same thing though. So light and dark are both different ends of the spectrum of light. Like dark is just the opposite kind of light than light, as we want to, you know, as people would say like that. So that's something to consider there, so you don't think like it's totally detached,
black
because they're the
and white.
same thing. Right.
Right. Yeah.
What do you think about that part?
I like that. Yeah, that's what I was saying about the force, the dark
Yeah, the
side of
force
the
be
force and
with
the
you.
light side of the force. Yeah, and there's a fine line. I always felt like, God, there was just, now wasn't it? I want to say the director did a lot of work with Campbell. What's his name? Campbell. I'm spaced on his name, but he did a lot of it talked a lot about the shadow self and all that stuff. But yeah, the idea of the forest, I really, as a kid, I was like, that makes sense to me. You know what I mean? I really connected with it so much. It just, but yes, and the reason we're talking about it is because there's a purpose for both. They're essential in order for us to be whole.
Mm-hmm. You gotta be
You know,
complete.
we have to be complete. You have to have the full scope of everything that's within you. I shared, I don't even know if I shared it, but it was a meme that or a quote that Yana Van Sant was talking about, your feelings You have to be able to feel all of them, dark, light, and whatever. Otherwise,
Mm.
how are you going to know where you're at?
Right.
It's your
Right.
compass. It
Right.
comes up to let you know as a signal, oh, I'm feeling something, you know, dark or light, positive or negative. But either way, it's lets you know what's going on with you. And we haven't been living out of that space. We live in a very limited world. We're always the gaslighting of our emotions, you know,
Yes.
and stuff.
Actually,
Yeah.
that's a great point. And it's reflective of the fact that our senses, all of them, in many people's cases, are limited to begin with. We can only see certain frequency
Yeah.
range, and that's where you get into all of the other possibilities that exist around us that we don't even know is there because they're extra sensory, to us.
Yeah.
So let's look at the numerology for the number 2, okay? Because remember, dual at the core is
Cool.
2, and it comes from duo. So and if we read over this, you'll see how intimate the relationship between. This is why they say mathematics is the language of the gods. Okay, you've heard that quote before, people. So 2 is the pair, the duo. It is changeable and adaptable, and can also be indecisive. All right. So it is the agent, the go-between, the diplomat, the peacemaker, because unity can only be accomplished through a meeting of the minds, a compromise on each side. Now, mind, the etymology of mind is memory. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's powerful in itself, because when we were talking about, if you're looking at this, you got to remember that everything has the equal opposite reaction to create balance.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. So 2 represents the feminine principle of receptivity. Like you said, the yin, which seeks a union of 2 distinct entities. All right. It is the gestation period in which things begin to form. 2 collects and assimilates. It seeks a balance between opposing forces.
I like the word assimilate.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Just like what you were saying, the opposing forces, right? So it seeks a balance between the opposing forces. And therefore, well, you know what? We can pause for a moment, because you're right. Assimilate there is powerful. 2 collects and assimilates, because if you don't, I'm going to say it like this, and I want to hear what you got to say about it. If you're not aware of the equal opposite, your view and your perspective is going to be out of balance. It's going to tilt to one side. It's going to be biased. Go ahead, speak on it.
Love it. And you're negating and denying the truth of your dark side that exists. It wants to be heard. Like, and when we have so many judgments about our emotions, we're going to be stymied. We're not going to be able to be real. We're not going to be able to be authentic, because we're always denying, whatever it is we're feeling. Then we have to, it's like when people say the nicety, how are you? It was just a nicety. In a society, no one really wants to hear that. And so you're not allowed to say what's really going on with you. Oh, always merry and bright. But you're not. And I feel personally that this is what causes a lot of diseases, when we're not allowed to be truthful with ourselves, let alone anybody else. And how can people trust you when you can't trust yourself?
Exactly.
You have to be able to. I see so many people saying, what is authenticity? Truthfulness with yourself. Then you can be truthful with other people. But if you're doing something, like when somebody asks how you doing, they ask you how you're doing, and you say, oh, I'm fine, but you're not really feeling that way. Say you come home and your spouse asks you how you're doing. Oh, I'm fine, but you're not really. It's not going to go well. Eventually, what's really going on is going to come out, and usually not in a healthy way, or it'll implode, it'll go inside you and you'll create an illness.
Right.
Because you know, you're not allowed to be real with yourself. So if you can't be real with yourself, you're really gonna have a hard time being real with somebody else. And this is where projection comes in. If you know, where somebody, if you're angry, somebody will tell you not to be angry. And but that's because they don't allow themselves to be angry. So they're not gonna let you be angry either. That's where the gaslighting comes in, you know?
Exactly.
And it's just, once you integrate your dark, your light, everything, it becomes a tool.
Yes.
You
It
don't have
wants to
to
be
fight it
used.
anymore. You can use it when it's proper to use it. There are advantages to it. That's why we had this perspective thing up to show you the pros and the cons on these traits, specifics, whatever you want to call them. And so, you know, because if not, you're blocked. You're, you know, like if you don't, what's that list again? Can we see that real quick again? Possibly. Would you be willing to pull that up?
Sure.
See if I can get it into words. Okay. All right. If you don't want to be, okay, discomfort. If you don't like discomfort, you're negating your ability to grow and learn. You have to be uncomfortable to experience something new in order to develop and grow and broaden your perspective. But if you're always in your comfort zone, it's gonna be difficult. It's difficult for people, but we don't live out of that truth. We don't live out of, you know, we want to be safe all the time. And even that isn't even real. That's a whole other conversation. But, you know, so, and I'm looking at some of these problems, challenges, you know, it's how you look at it. If you're going, oh, I'm just sick of these problems. If you change your perspective and your thinking and you look at them as challenges, suddenly they're opportunities to learn and grow and to learn about yourself, learn about others, learn about life, and develop skills in problem solving. I'm trying to think here. Failures and lessons, you know, people just, failure is like a big one in our society, right?
Yeah,
it's
it
like,
causes pain to people.
You're a loser, you know what I mean? And but how do you learn your lesson? How do you, I'm going to say something really just, and maybe, you know, I get a little guarded with the word sin, because if you don't make a mistake, you're not going to know the difference. You're not going to know. If you don't stay up long enough to greet the dawn, you know, it's, how can I say this? Yeah, I mean, if you don't put your hand on the stove and burn yourself, you're not going to know that the stove is hot and to avoid it.
Hey, you know, that's my favorite line.
And so you need to be able to sin so you can learn. You need your trials so you can develop wisdom and better navigate your life and teach your children that. So if you have a judgment about failures, wow, you're really stymied because you're afraid to do anything. You're afraid of sinning, the bad and wrong, and it creates inner conflicts. And if you have a bad thought, you know, I mean, it's just, you wouldn't know what good is if you didn't do something bad. There's a purpose.
It's really right there.
Yeah.
It's right there. If you look, if you just read down the left side and the right side, so your discomfort, right, is due to problems you're facing, fear, the rejections of the problems or triggers. That's going to leave you in the darkness, right? And that's going to cause your failures because you're afraid of the pain of growth. But the growth is going to bring you to the challenges. It's going to cause the redirection in your life, because once you get to that point, you're revealing the wounds, and in revealing the wounds, it reveals the light, And that is the lessons that comes from the teachers of the different experiences and people in our life that brings us to power.
Which is what the word transmutation means. You know, in American Indian cultures, we talked about this before, they take a lot of snake bites in order to transmute the snake bites into what's the word, immunity. So then you're empowered by it. You're
exactly. So
like, if you befriend your darkness, suddenly it's an ally. You can use it for good too.
it
You can
becomes
use
that
the
weapon,
positive attributes. Yeah.
that tool, rather,
The
for some people.
tool. Yeah. And you know,
So
yeah.
two collects and assimilates. It seeks a balance between opposing forces and therefore represents cooperation. And when you look at that, right, I like that it's split there with the hyphen at the right place at the right time, because that again speaks in terms of balance. You got both sides, they got to coexist, so you can cooperate them. And if you leave one out, then that's not cooperation, that's unilateral operation, right? So let me start back at the beginning of that sentence so it's clear for the people. It seeks a balance between opposing forces and therefore represents cooperation, attachment, and partnership. It is the peacemaker with an avid attention to detail. See, that's why I always be telling people, don't get focused, don't get stuck on the variables. You got to look at the whole equation, because if you're not looking at the whole equation, you're missing details, right, to consider. So because two,
so important.
So because two is so keenly aware of opposites, it has a pronounced sense of rhythm and harmony. Music appeals to a sympathetic and emotional nature. The maternal, patient, and sensitive characteristics of two cause it to place others first before itself. Union is its goal, not separateness, not separateness. Okay. Therefore, it is obedient to an understanding of others. See, that right there, like I was saying earlier, when you master, or you start trying to, or walk the journey of mastering the duality in Trish's case, or the infinity of the equation in my case, which is the same conversation just said in different languages, you are going to lose friends. Because what happens is you're going to start understanding others where they're putting up their projection walls, and they're not going to like you investigating. Some of them, the ones that aren't ready for it.
Oh, yeah. You know, I shared a meme in the Ram Dass group, and it was something about every time you get triggered, you reveal a part of yourself that a wound, right? It's not always a wound. But someone said, well, what if you see somebody that's cheating and you have a reaction to that and you judge? It was a judgment. That's the word. Every time you judge something, you reveal an unhealed part of yourself. I don't think that wording is accurate, but what they're saying in that is that it's not always that it's a wound, but it's a judgment, and you're deeming it bad and wrong. So this girl goes, I see somebody that's cheating. Does that mean I'm a cheater? And I'm like, well, it means that you're capable of it. And what some people consider cheating, if you break down the scenario, it's not always the case. And hence coming back to duality, coming back to it. You just can't, that's why they say there's always an exception to the rule, because there always is, because of the duality of things. I don't think I explained that quite the way I was hoping to, but
no, you absolutely did. I mean,
you know,
it's if you don't consider, it goes back, it's if you don't consider the details of the complete equation, you can't know the answer properly, which is why I had a couple issues just the last 7 days. That, you know, people are posting, I like your term, blanket statements, right? They're posting they're posting.
That
See,
word.
we're connected. So they're posting the blanket statements on Facebook, and then I'm in the comments like, well, you can't say it like that because you got to consider the other side of the equation, or this, that, and the other. And they're like, no, you don't see it. You don't see what I'm talking about. So it's hilarious once you reach this level of cooperation in your life with the elements and the environment around you. So two, let's finish this up real quick here. It's got a little bit left. So two is it seeks harmony and assimilation above all. And that's why people like us, we put the truth before everything else. We put the truth before your job. We put the truth before the people that we want to keep in our circle. The truth is it, right, for us. So and it goes in to explain the hydrogen ions, which sprang into existence under one, are now hurtling through space. They will be drawn towards one another by the law of mutual attraction, or the law of number two. Keywords are adaptable. See, this is why people are stuck, because they're not in observation of the infinity. So they lose that sight to be flexible. They're not agile. So then you got tactful, understanding, gentle, cautious, a follower rather than a leader. So yeah, you follow the truth, you know. And what I thought was interesting while I was sitting here looking at this, because I didn't do this on purpose at all. So two, we read up on, you can see the numbers 3 and then the number 5 on the page as well, right? So in the picture. So just a little brief there. 3 combines the qualities of 1 and 2. So 2 plus 3 is 5, and 5 is freedom. So combining the qualities of 1 and 2, when you get to the pair of everything that we went over, it's part of your freedom. Like we're talking about, it's part of freeing you from the judgments of society, from the gaslighting of others, from the toxicity of minds. Because like you said, Trish, you, in translation, you can't be real if you can't be whole or complete. The hoarding
Not allowed
of that,
to feel every human trait.
the hoarding
You're
of that,
not going to be fully expressed.
the hoarding of that energy is toxic and poisoning
Yes.
to the body. And people don't trust
Yes.
complete or whole people because of their incompleteness in themselves.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Let me hear what you got.
When we see people talk about the truth, what is that? And we see people talk about vibrating high. What is that? Authenticity. The highest level of truth and highest level of vibration is self-honesty.
Mhm.
Admitting how you're really feeling at every moment. Don't let anybody else tell you the shoulds and the shouldn'ts and whatever. That's them. You're you, so truth is the key to everything. Your self-truth, when you're being truthful with yourself, when whatever situation you're in, if you're angry, you say, you know what, that makes me angry. If you're sad, you know what, that makes me sad. You don't have to go crazy with the emotion. And I see a lot of people say it's control your emotions. It's like, manage them, be with them, let them guide you. Ask them what they're trying to tell you. There's signals about your soul, about yourself, about your own personal boundaries, what you're comfortable with, what you're not comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're truthful with yourself, and then you can be truthful with others. And saying, when, like, for instance, when people say, don't be angry, because they don't let themselves feel angry. So they're going to project that onto you because they don't want to deal with their anger. So let's say, no, you need to calm down. You need to, anger is bad and wrong. And that's not true. Anger is essential. Why would we have it? Why do humans have all these traits? There's a purpose for them. They're there to help us navigate. And how would we know where we're at if we don't know what our feelings are? How would we know? That it makes me think of that Billy Joel song, The Stranger in Me, which in fact, he named the album The Stranger, which is really, he was talking about the shadow self. But we're not taught. We're taught anger is bad, sorrow is bad, always merry and bright. That's unrealistic. And so then when you're really depressed and you go on a date, you put on your good, happy face all the time. And then the person goes, wow, this person is great. You move in together and it's like, holy crap, who is this person? It's just, it creates depression. It creates anxiety. It creates all kinds of other things because You're constantly not allowed to be truthful. So anyways, that thing about truth and vibrating high just comes back to authenticity and just being true and saying, yeah, I am angry, or whatever it is you're feeling. And then once you allow it, you notice this, I'm sure as you've gone through your journey, once you allow it, you're free. It's like all of a sudden, it doesn't have you anymore. You're not fighting it all the time. You can integrate it, you can transmute it, and you can put it in your tool belt instead of it running your life. That's how you control your emotions. You allow them to be. If you're in pain, allow yourself to feel the pain. There's a purpose for the pain. But if you're not, and you're always like stuck in the pleasure thing and addiction and avoidance, you know, eventually you're going to have to face the music. You're going to have to face the monkey that you're running from, whatever emotion it is, so that you can be true and whole and fully self-expressed and free.
We all want freedom if we're honest with ourselves. And one thing that you said that I want to expand on, because you know that's what I like to do. There's two sides to every coin. So when you said don't let anyone tell you ... right? And I wanna express to everyone that right there is one of the biggest opportunities to use your duality. Because if like you said, if you put up that wall and you don't let anyone tell you whatever it is that you feel like you don't want to hear, right? Remember, that's the discomfort factor. So what it is that to express the duality in it by learning from them, give them the opportunity to share with you. I do this a lot. Like I sit there and I go through Facebook, or I meet someone on the street, or you're in the grocery store, or you're talking here, you're talking there. And I'm like, yo, tell me about you. Tell me what it is. What do you think about this? And you just let them get it off their chest, because what happens is you're either going to learn something new, or what's new you're going to learn about that conversation part of it is that maybe you can't learn anything from them in the conversation because you already know what they're saying, right? So that's cool. And then I had it happen the other day. Here's a great recent real life example. Someone sent me a video and to watch, and I'm watching a video and I'm just like, yep, okay. And they talk, you know, some people talk fast and they're going blah, 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 and they're like dropping lines. But every sentence I was like, yeah, I got a whole video detailing that. Oh, did a video on that, outlining all of that in detail, though. You know, we're talking about the full scope of things. So, and that made me think though. So what happened was, even though I knew the information that he was presenting, and I've done videos, you know, a year ago about it, right? It was the fact that I'm like, I wonder if people actually would like to just get this little low level skim over real quick, or do they actually prefer to have an in-depth conversation, Q&A about it, get the studying lessons? And that caused me to go to Facebook later on and make a post to ask people how they prefer to learn. If you had an hour a week to learn, would you like to learn a lot about a little, or a little about a lot? And I'm getting feedback from that I want to use in a presentation later on, because most people that are still saying that they want to learn a little about a lot, they're still saying they want to go back later and review more. And I'm like, okay, so that allowed me to learn, you know what? I'm not even gonna worry about so far. I'm like, I'm not even gonna worry about changing how I do things, because if you want to go back and learn more later on, that's why I give you the complete video. So you can say you only got 10 minutes into it today, just like a good book. You go back and read it or finish watching it later. So I think that was a great observation, is that you can learn from anybody, anytime, through observation. So even if it's just that you didn't learn about the conversation, look at what other elements are present that you can still learn something from. So invite that opportunity for someone to discuss with you something that may make you uncomfortable at the moment, or you may feel like, you know, some other way that you would have normally been like, I ain't got time for this. When you really do got the time, you just like, you don't want to hear it because of stuff in your mind.
Yeah, and it makes you uncomfortable. You'd have to maybe own up to a few things, even within ourselves. So, because I mean, I want to say to the viewers, for me, I'm not judging anybody here. This is all, I'm dissecting myself as
Oh yeah,
I'm
yeah.
dissecting all of humanity. We're we're breaking this down because we want to understand it. We want to be fully self-expressed, we want to be free.
Hey, the people at
And
YN7 know we're it's therapy for them as well as therapy for us. So
of course, see, I forgot I'm on your channel, right? I'm sorry, I meant no. I just don't want to come across like, I kind of felt like maybe I was kind of coming across like a know-it-all or something. I always want to be really mindful of that. Me
nah.
like,
And what's
I'm
wrong?
sorry, I
What's
didn't
wrong
mean
with
to.
that? What would be
Yeah,
wrong with that, Trish?
yeah. I just want to make sure that I express that, because I was talking with my friend Oval about this. We get this a lot. People think we're know-it-alls because we'll challenge people and they think we're, I don't know, they get the wrong idea. But anyways, that's a whole other thing. But for some reason I felt like I should say that. But yeah, so
You saw
really,
my meme the other day about the know-it-alls, right?
I don't know. God,
It's
it's been
okay.
an intense week,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so just trying to keep my head above. There's just been a lot of stuff in my personal life, but so this is why duality is so important to talk about it, because even the people in the spiritual communities don't quite understand it. uh, um they're still saying anger is bad. They're still saying get rid of your ego.
Mm-hmm.
And these things it's not possible. First of all, it's a lovely idea, but it's just you can't do it. It's part of us. It's there for a purpose, and that's what we're trying to explain to people is all these things are here for a purpose. They serve a purpose, and when we embrace them and we assimilate them, I love that word. Because suddenly, I mean, man, just your whole life opens up. You see everything as more from a place of opportunity than a problem. You can see the
Yeah.
opportunity in things that once really messed with you, when you're not judging it, when you're just looking at it and you're going, okay. Eckhart Tolle says this, he's like, always work with it. Always. There's always advantages to whatever it is you're going through. There's always, like we said, the lesson and what you can learn from it and what you can do with that wisdom that you get out of that. So that's why what we're talking about is just really, really important. Nobody talks about it enough. To me, I don't see people talking about it nearly enough.
That's what we're here for, Trish. We're doing it.
Yeah, we're getting the gaslighting, we're getting the projection. We are seeing that. Really, we're seeing a lot of gaslighting, and I'm really, really grateful for that. It's time to dig in and go deeper and get to these other elements that are really, really important in understanding gaslighting, where it comes from, how it works, and what it does to people, what it's done to society, how it stymies us. It based on these, false misnomers.
Hey, so
Yeah.
what you said earlier about the toolbox, that and gaslighting and everything, it kind of reminded me, or I think you said tool belt, whatever, toolbox. So it reminded me of the line in my song Gaslighting. It's like, I'm running around just lagging my tools, you know what I mean? Because I scheduled you for maintenance, you know what I'm saying? Because we're gonna fix this.
Oh,
That's
that's
what
cool.
YN7 doing here. So I think now also what you made me think about just a moment ago, and then I'm gonna drop the card on the screen here. And that's why I open and close, and you hear me say in conversation sometimes, thank you for tuning. Because you can watch stuff, you can hear stuff, but when you tune in, like you're aligning, you're assimilating within that frequency. You're in the vibe, you're in the moment. So there's a difference between watching. Someone says, "Yeah, I seen that." There's a difference between hearing, like, "Yeah, I heard you," and there's a difference there's a difference between being tuned in.
Yeah.
So
I love that, being tuned in.
we're tuned in.
How can you be in tune with yourself if you're not allowed to feel your emotions?
Yeah. And it's just
Everyone's
like the
always telling
radio.
you, control your emotions. That's not the right word. I know what they're after, but it makes people not want them. It gets that resistance thing going.
Well,
When
they're
the
allergic to the truth
transmutation,
sometimes.
yeah, yes, the transmutation is the accepting of it, befriending your anger. I see a lot of people say, oh, anger, this, that. And I go, what do you think your anger is trying to tell you? Just don't even, just what's the first thing that comes to you right off your head when I ask you that question? And they'll go, oh my God, yeah, that's why you have it. It's trying to tell you something about yourself, or you wouldn't be feeling it.
Exactly. And so this, right? Let me see how I want to put this in. So you gotta know the signs. Again, that's part of being tuned in.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So this card, right, is the High Priestess. It's the number 2 card. So what's interesting is the High Priestess symbolizes the subconscious mind. Like some of this is going to overlap with the number 2, but watch this, the subconscious mind, which I thought was interesting because that's the part of you when you're limiting yourself and you have all those one-sided beliefs. That's that little voice in your head saying, now you need to consider that. And you're like, no, shut up. Who are you? Get out of my head. You know what I mean? You think it's the other person.
Oh, that's funny.
So the receptive, the reproductive, the form building within the human organism. Now, when you look at that line, right, the form building power, which is what you had at the end of your list there. It's the form building power within the human organism. So we could say, hey, is that the power of self-expression? Is that the power of us being whole with ourselves? Or is it the power of all of humanity actually rising and achieving a certain goal collectively together?
Interesting.
This is why we got to understand this principle of duality or infinity so that we can stop being isolated and divided, because united we stand, divided we fall, right?
Absolutely. And it, the lie that we're separate. We're not. And we're actually interdependent. Come on. We're sharing this planet. Why are we? There is no this type of person. That's not real. And it frustrates me. I see all the ways in which people get relegated into these factions of a type of person. When we talked about it, that's just not true. So it's important for us to start having the conversation of we, not me. Why do we do this? Because we all do. And even if we haven't done something, we're capable of it.
Yes.
Like the girl was saying, well, that can't be true. If I'm judging somebody for cheating, does that mean I'm a cheater? You know what I mean? And they just don't really.
Means you might want to. Maybe you want to. You mad at them for doing their thing.
Careful. Yeah, when you get to judging somebody, the universe is going to come along and teach you a lesson. Next thing, you're going to be the one cheating. And I would love to just have a podcast on that idea. And
that says going.
That there's a dark side and a light side to that too. There's different reasons why people cheat. So just moving away from the condemnation that we're doing all the time. I saw a really cool meme. It was like, judgment day isn't coming, non-judgment day is coming. Ooh. Where you're instead of judgment, you're really coming for more discernment, the positive side of judgment.
There you go.
And discernment is a very powerful place to come from. So where judgment can be very abusive. And then there's, what I would say we're doing here is inviting people to look at the dark side and the light side to everything, so that you can understand what you said, infinity, the whole
duality,
of
as you
it,
say. Yeah.
the duality. Yeah.
Speaking of the
'Cause-
dark and light, real quick, the dark and light is in the card there with the pillars. You have the
oh
darker
yeah.
version of the red and
Wow.
the lighter one in the white. So that's represent. And if you look at the
Wow.
cups in the hand, you have the red and the black
Mm.
with the white bottom. So you have the pillars though in itself in the tarot is representation of that dark and light duality.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like with this, right? All memory,
Mm.
universal and personal, is recorded on the High Priest scroll. And see, that was where it was talking about the minds earlier. In number 2, where it said be accomplished through a meeting of the minds. See, and I said, hey, remember, mind means memory. So all memory, universal and personal, is recorded on the High Priest scrolls, which is particularly hidden because all is not yet known, right? The Most High or God or the universe always has more to reveal. And see, I have a unique connection. I ain't gonna say unique like nobody else does, but I have a unique connection with this card because this card actually represents my quote unquote birthday. This is like the exact card for my birthday, my born day.
Mm.
So yeah, on my particular born day, I'm the High Priestess in reverse, which means, which in reverse, the card actually symbolizes some aspect of the cards of superficiality and outmoded ways of behavior. So this card often indicates that situation is clear and there are no secrets to ponder. Now's the time for action. And when I investigated this part about myself, I was like, that's so accurate because it's always the perfect day. And when you're in tune with the infinity or the complete duality, there are no secrets to ponder. You're going to know that you know, or you're going to know that you don't know. And you're going to probably, like, if you're like me and you're going to go find out. You know what I mean? So that's an amazing thing. But that's my connection with this card personally.
Like even with the cards, there's the straight up and then there's inverted or whatever, upside down.
The duality of that itself.
Yeah.
Yes. See, exists everywhere.
That's really so. I mean, this is so important. People just really don't know that, to the degree of how they're just not operating from the fullness of themselves. There's so many boarded up, as she says in The Dark Side of the Light Chasers, boarded up rooms in the castle, that are just bad and wrong. And it just how can you have a healthy relationship with yourself if you haven't integrated all that you are, you haven't explored yourself, introspection,
Absolutely.
how do you understand yourself if you're not allowed to even ask anything about yourself? You're just stiff upper lip, never let them see you sweat, and all the blanket statements and that negate the truth of duality, basically. Yeah.
You're absolutely right. And even with the stiff upper lip, I get it, because when I analyzed that part about myself with the card and being where it said old fashioned, well, that's what outmoded mean, like old fashioned. And I was like, you know what, but that's right, because there was a period in time in the past, in the golden age or whatever, how far you want to go back, or when people actually use the words, like, for example, etymology, when they use the words, what they meant, and they knew what the spell was they were casting, you would call that old fashioned today. People are going to be like, no, that's not what the word means today. And you're like, no, that is what the word means today. So to them, you're old fashioned. So the more I fell into that rabbit hole, I was like, yeah, that's absolutely true, because if we're living in a time period where the lie is the more interesting story, then the truth is going to be considered old fashioned. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
yes, right.
so I was like, this is perfect. I'm not even offended by it. Here's something else, right? So
thinking about what you're saying. Yeah.
So the card before this, number one, remember it says, remember earlier when we was looking at the numerology, it said the combination of the number one and number two gives you the three, right? Which was combine the qualities of one and two, you get three, and then two plus three is five, right? So when we were talking about that earlier, so one is the magician card, and magician has all the tools it needs to create whatever it wants, right? Now, to make it make sense with the cards, where the high priestess comes into play, the combining the one and two is, if you're the magician and you can make anything you want in the world because you're magic, right? But you got this narrow field of perspective, then you're only going to create in that box. When you bring the high priestess into play, the number two, it gives you the sense of infinity, and you'll know you can create anything in the universe, basically. You know what I mean? The whole of the infinity, because you're accepting that it all exists to begin with, or is all possible, rather.
Can you give me an example of like a daily event that would illustrate what you're talking about when you talk about, because I see a lot of people talk about magic, but they don't talk about what it looks like in your daily living. What does magic look like in your daily living? So
I'll give you a
I
great
see that a
example.
lot.
I'll give you a great example. One that you see every day in the mirror. When you transmutated from the stupid girl to the most intelligent, one of the most intelligent people that you know, right?
Yeah. And it really, and this is where it goes, the constructs of what we're told smart is and what it actually is.
And real quick, for the people that may be starting here with us, with me and Trish, I said that because we had a whole couple videos where we talked about her being labeled as having a learning disorder, and then me being labeled as being advanced and gifted. In reality, we approached our thoughts the same way. We just had two different judgments from different people that got slapped labels on us. So that's a perfect example of the duality or the infinity of consideration. So just so you guys understand why I said that.
Yes.
To the channels.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. Yeah.
So you had the magician all along. You had the tools, you had the little magic ability. And then you had to realize someone or something cut you off from the infinity, or cut you off from the duality, and had you trapped on that one side in that box of, I got the learning disorder, right? Which I have the same learning disorder too. It's called ask a question, motherfucker. Tell me some more. You know what I'm saying? I want to know more, right?
Why? Or just why? I don't understand. Yeah. So
there you go.
I threatened the teachers, I think. So they had to, deem me stupid because I questioned them.
Right, because when questions, you expose the potential beyond the limitations of the box that they're operating in, and they would have to accept the infinity, or they already know the infinity, but the school system ain't supposed to give us the truth. They just tell us what they want us to know so we can go be good workers and stuff. So they would have to go beyond that, and they had to silence you, so to speak. You were a threat to the system.
Yes. Exactly. And
join the force.
What I learned about the stupid girl it wasn't even just that I wasn't even stupid. It's just that what we were told was actual education was a lie.
Right. And that's what you're exposing and questioning.
That what we're told being educated was, because look what's going on. We have all this information and no wisdom. What good is education if you don't have wisdom? There's some misnomers once again there, where education and smart and what is that? I've known many people that are really, really smart, but maybe didn't necessarily have a ton of common sense. They weren't good at their decision making in their lives. They were like book smart, but maybe not street savvy. So yeah, it kind of cracked all that open for me, and I really got the chance to look at all these things we were talking about in terms of education and what is an actual education. And so, yeah.
Hmm. So, all right. So let's get back to the card here. The Vulcan, right, and the moon is the astrological correspondence for the High Priestess. So the key two of tarot ruled by the moon and the number two ruled by Vulcan join forces in bringing about gestation. See, that's what we we're talking about, the ability to create whatever you want, to manifest, right? Vulcan is the blacksmith of the gods, the keeper of the flame and fireside. So many astrologers feel that the planet Vulcan is the rightful ruler of Virgo, which I'm a Virgo. So it just happens to be that not only am I a Virgo, but this also is the card for my exact born day. Such a great connection. So after the idea has been sown by the number one vibration, it must first find a warm, dark place where it can properly nurture away from the light and the clamor of the outer world. So when you're speaking about light and darkness, there you go. So isn't it ironic that what needs photosynthesis to survive, what needs the light from another source, must first go into the darkness of the soil to grow?
Oh my God, I was just talking with my sister about that today. The seed has to be planted in the dirt, in the dark, for it to raise up to be the light. But, and here's the cool part about that metaphor of the flower. You put the seed of the flower into the ground and it starts to bud up. Part of the flower is in the ground and part of it's going towards the sun. They need both.
They're craving
the flower
both.
needs both to exist. There's purpose for them. And you know, when you're confused and you don't know what to do, you got to go into the darkness, you got to go into the silence, close everybody off, you know, take a nap, even meditate or whatever, go into the void, as they say, for the answers, you know. Then you can see the light of day. You know what I
Then you
mean?
can see
It's like
the true
yeah,
light of day.
the true light of day. Yeah, yeah. That's a cool one. I'm glad you brought that up, because I was talking about trying to explain that with my sister, because she's awakening. She's starting to figure this stuff out pretty quickly, I might add. And it's actually helping her navigate her illness.
Yeah.
It's so cool. I'll tell you more about that later. It's really cool to see her realize the power of her mind. Pretty cool.
Speaking of the power of the mind, right? The idea seeks refuge in the depths of the moon. Ruled the subconscious, is ruled by the moon. So it says it waits there to be fed by the imagination, and that's the continuation of what we were talking about. If you can't, you know those sayings where it says if you can envision it, you can see it in real life. Like, I know that's not the verbatim, but there's so many of them.
If you can conceive it and you can believe it, you can achieve it.
Yeah, like all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So that's the magician, but you have to be aware of the duality.
I love that. Yeah.
Of the duality and the infinity of the High Priestess, so that you know it is real. You see? So
that's cool. I'd love to dig into the magician thing and alchemy and all of that. That'd be cool.
We digging right here, right now.
That's some
right
good stuff.
Here,
yeah.
Right
I love
now.
that stuff.
So look, it says like Vulcan, the formation process is not seen, but it continues, fed by the fire of determination. And that's where you got to know it exists, because if you only believe you can go 2 feet in front of you, you will never be able to travel across country.
It'd be cool to do a podcast on limitations.
Let's get it. Make a note. We'll make a note.
That's a really good one
too. Document it.
Ah, there's so many of them. So many limitations. And so subtly, you know, under the radar in our society, that have kept people from fully living a fully, you know, going for what they really want to go for. That goes back to one of our earliest podcasts where we talked about what does the visionaries have that we don't? Nothing. It's like what you said, that
we have the
everyone
magician
was
already.
saying there's a box, think outside the box, and the visionaries like there is no box. The box is an illusion.
Yep.
And we don't live out of that. We live in a box, in a bubble. We think, so anyways, I'm gonna get off.
Hey, no, you're on it.
I always get on my tangents, I got my hair. Right.
I like your tangents because to me, I'm always on the intangible. So that's balance. and when you were speaking about we need to do a podcast on limitations, we actually are doing it on limitations if the subconscious accepts that what we're discussing now is the freeing element, the equal opposite force of limitations. As it continues to say here, Vulcan, the mythological tender of fire, aids the nurturing and protecting influences by making sure that the fire or desire to bring forth the seed does not flicker and die. See, so that is succumbing to the limitation. See, this element that we're discussing is going to make sure you continue to feed the fire and desire so that the seed breaks free from the soil in both directions, because it's still got, even going down into the soil, it's still got to fight through the dirt, go around the rock, all that stuff is there. You know what I mean? It still has obstacles that way too.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Definitely need to do another podcast. There's a lot of things we could say on that. I like that you use the cards because it shows people the power of metaphors and what they mean.
Thank you.
And it's really important. You had asked me to do the cards, and the animal cards are different. We'll have to talk about that later. We'll have to sit down and talk about that one later. I might even just
the animal cards are your swag.
Yeah, I might just come forward with those because I think they're just wonderful. They're just like this, just on different animals, using animals as metaphors.
Yeah, so give it to us.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, it's really cool. So I might even just do that. I might just do just like a singular solo thing where I talk about what various animal medicine totems are. So people, when they see them, they know that it's a message from the divine and all that. But yeah, so anyways,
nah, you're good. So the way the tarot cards work is you have the unmanifested reality and unity of consciousness of the Fool, which is the 0 card. Then you go through the manifested world and focus of action of the Magician, which is the number 1 card. And that brings us down, once you get to the duality of the High Priestess, all of this stuff becomes possible. So the Fool is like, you just got to trust your heart and go with it, you know what I mean? And then you get the Magician, makes you realize you have all the tools you need to create anything you want. And then the High Priestess comes in and says, hey, you may have the ability to create more than you ever dreamed of because you didn't dream the complete reality to begin with of what's possible. So it opens you up to the full infinity, like we're saying. So that in itself will dissolve limitation. That's the salt to the ice of limitation, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like this. So I'm interested. I want to see your cards. I want to see you bring that up on when we get back to your channel, or even when you come here. I would like to, maybe the next one we do, let's bust out your cards and get you active there, or no rush, whenever you're ready. It's always a perfect day. So what's on your mind now? Do you have anything you want to add, or that we
just that
with duality?
When you talk about limitations and the aspect how limitations is applied to duality, it's when somebody's telling you not to feel an emotion, when someone has a judgment about an emotion, and just deeming it bad and wrong. It's not true, because duality exists. It has good traits and bad traits, to all traits. And so when you're not living out of that truth, you're limited. It's very limited, very limiting to not, like I said, if somebody says, you know, get rid of your ego, and people are trying to do that. When
Yeah.
there's, you know, there's positive aspects to the ego that we need. But if you throw the whole thing out, you really, it's just not, you're limited. So I would say, like, maybe when, for the next podcast, we could talk about limitations and how deep that rabbit hole goes. There's a
Okay.
lot, there's just a lot of limiting things in our society, a lot of limitations, limited beliefs and stuff like that. So I would love to dig into that and connect the dot with, you know, the duality and our limitations, and talk about that, break that down so people understand that as well. That makes any sense.
Absolutely.
Be cool, really cool to do that. I
So
love this. I love doing this. I mean, this is like for years I drive people crazy. Shut up. You just break everything down. You're too analytical or whatever. You know, I just like apples. You know what I mean? We have to talk about how they're grown, and you know what I mean? I just like to dig in, and because I want to understand things, you know, I've always been that way.
that's who we are. That's who we cater to. And we're here for the people that are ready when they're ready.
Yeah.
The irony is, what I tell my mind, what I tell myself is, you know, they have that luxury to react that way and respond that way because we offer this as a free service, so to speak. Like, we really get serious about what we're doing. We're offering a free service to the community. This is free therapy. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Now, if they were to
Yes.
go be somewhere paying for it and they had to cut a check for $400 and $500 per hour to us each, they would feel differently about the information we're giving, even though it's probably the same exact thing that some therapist is going to tell them. And that's the irony. So when they're paying $400 or $500 for it, it's just like college. You could teach people what they're going to learn in a college class, and they'll look at you like you're fucking crazy and go through the whole song and dance with you, right? But when they go pay for college, they're in there taking notes and they're like trying to stay behind, ask for help and all this shit but we were getting on their nerves. So you gotta that's the duality. But
Well, the whole
we were all
reason,
there once, right? We were all there once.
yeah, the whole reason I started doing the podcast is because my brother was killed, and he had a really hard life, and I thought I couldn't save him, but I'm certainly going to do my damnedest to save all the other Davids of the world. People have a right to know this stuff. They have, you know, people say you had a choice. Not if you ever made, no one ever told you you had one, then you don't really have one, you know. So what we're doing here is providing people with choices, letting them know they have a choice, a lot of choices that so many they never even dreamed possible.
The He-Man.
Yeah.
I have the power, or by the
Yes.
power of Grayskull. And that's
Yes.
also a powerful statement, because even him saying that, even in his way of saying that he had the power in the cartoon when it went off and came on and stuff, it was still him admitting that the power came from the source, or some source outside of him to begin with. By the power of Grayskull, not by the power of He-Man. Right? So it's amazing when you know what you're looking for, how often you see it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yes. And that's what we're doing, helping people expand their minds and learn about themselves, and realize they have a lot more choices. Yeah, this is just so great. I love this work. Thank you so much, Asha. I
Thank
mean,
you,
I really
Trish.
appreciate you. I know I keep saying that, but it's just so nice to talk with somebody that gets me. You
It's always
know,
the perfect day.
I appreciate it so much. And thank you for taking the time to have me on your show and your busy schedule. I really means a lot to me.
If I was to be true to the duality, I'm always say I'm equally as grateful, because what makes me any different in my life any different or scheduled than you? We could be anywhere in the world right now. Even the people viewing this is going to be able to be anywhere in the world right now. But we have to accept that it's always the perfect day, because it's the reason why we're here together at this moment.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Trish. I'm gonna put the link to your channel in the comments. Conversations from the School of Hard Knocks. Check out Trish McCabe. She's having some dope content as well. I'll be on her channel sometimes. She'll be on my channel sometimes. We're really doing this work for you, and ourselves at the same time, because we all need this. We all need this.
Yeah.
Trish, any closing remarks?
Just keep watching people. Keep asking questions. Keep digging in. You will not regret it, for sure.
That's well said. In other words, 2 + 3 is 5. That's your freedom, baby. I'm Pasha Paroh Y Net 7. That's Trish McCabe over there. Trish McCabe over there. Thank you for tuning.
Awesome. Bye.